Well, we've already had the conversations of a few guys that are a possibility for the Toronto Blue Jays. Today, let's talk about Alex Bregman.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Wasco. Carter First, too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you are new here on YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, make sure you go and subscribe to the YouTube page. It really does help us out. It's free to do so. You might as well. And you'll get notified if there's any videos, any shorts, any live streams, anything like that. It's all there on YouTube as well. So make sure you guys go and hit that subscribe button. It does really help out. Also, if you haven't already, go join the Locked On Blue Jays Discord channel. Everybody can chat with everybody, all the fans of this show, of all the fans of the Blue Jays. We'll be in there discussing some topics throughout the season and the off season as well. For you guys, obviously, you can all tell we're participating in Movember. And so we're trying to raise some money. So if you have anything to spare, please go down below in the description and click the links and go donate whatever you can. Even if it's $2, if it's $5, whatever you can, it really does all help out. A lot to get into today. A Big Jays quote. We probably saw it if you follow us on our Blue Jays Instagram account. We made a post about some of the comments made. We'll get into all of that, as you know, they are interesting for sure. And I think it opens our eyes into what the Blue Jays are looking for to this free agency. But Carter, in talking about that, I guess before we get into that quote, let's talk about sort of the man of the hour of who we're here to discuss, and that's Alex Bregman and what the possibilities are that he might be a Toronto Blue Jay next year.
It would be nice. We're looking for somebody. It doesn't have to be Juan Soto. It doesn't have to be Santander. It doesn't even necessarily have to be Alex Bregman. But this team desperately needs bats. They desperately need different pieces from different organizations and free agency that need to bolster this team, because we watched 2024. Let's just flat out say that team sucked. Absolutely terrible in 2024. It's got to get better. Alex Bregman would make this team exponentially better very quickly. We have holes at multiple positions, as we've said on this podcast: second base, an corner outfield position, and third base. So obviously Alex Bregman playing third base his entire career would be a pretty good fit for the Toronto Blue Jays. Mark Feinsand has Alex Bregman ranked as the number 4 free agent this offseason. Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, and Juan Soto being above him. So he is one of the big fish on the market. He has him as the second bat that could bolster an offense. And when you have a lineup with Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if you can throw Alex Bregman in the mix, you can have a guy like Spencer Horwitz, obviously adding to that as well. Maybe Daulton Varsho, again, league average hitter. Alejandro Kirk maybe has a bounce back season. You get one name, and this offense starts to look a whole lot better very quickly. So you have the Alex Bregman stats. So you just jump right into it.
Yeah, I got him here. Let's talk about it, because we want to know before we really get into, is this guy going to be a good fit? We got to take a look at how he's done last season and sort of over the last little bit here. So in 2024, Alex Bregman had a 4.1 WAR with 145 games played, 634 plate appearances. He had 151 hits with 30 doubles, 2 triples, 26 home runs, and 75 RBIs with 3 stolen bases, 44 walks, 86 strikeouts, a batting average of 260, an on-base percentage of 315, a slugging percentage of 453, an OPS of 768, which is a down season for him for sure. And Carter, I don't know, my guy, like when I hear those stats, yes, they're not jump off the page unbelievable numbers, but they're steady Alex Bregman type numbers. And I think there's only room to improve with Alex Bregman. You know what you're going to get out of this guy. He's been steady his entire career. This is, at the end of the day, a guy that could be very useful for this Blue Jays team. We've talked, we've heard from you guys about the hole at third base. Even though Ernie Clement had a good year defensively, out of some of these positions, we got to find better bats. And not saying that Ernie Clement was horrible in any sense of the word. It's just that you need superstars. And so wherever you can slot a superstar in like Alex Bregman, if third base is that option, you take that. I think at any point you sign a guy and you hope that they can play a position, or if you have to move things around, you have to. At the end of the day, you want your best hitters. Defense is defense, and it's important, obviously, as we see, the Yankees. But at the end of the day, your bats might be able to carry you some games where sometimes your defense isn't going to be able to. That's the difference.
And Alex Bregman got nominated for a third base Gold Glove. So this guy
Yeah.
isn't selling us short at the third base position for defense. Again, I'm not going to say that the Gold Glove's necessarily right every single time, but if you're getting nominated for a Gold Glove nomination, you're not bad at defense. I think that's a fair thing to say.
Absolutely.
And when you talked about Alex Bregman's stats, maybe having a little bit of a down year, that's because this guy had a George Springer in March and April. He was one of the worst hitters of all time during these 2 months. A 561 OPS through March, a 580 OPS through April, 200 average, 218 in April. Again, March can't really take too much away from that because it's like 2 games. But the first month of the season, just horrendous. When you look at his first 51 games, he had 4 home runs, a 589 OPS. And then when you look at the last 94 contests of his season, he hit 288 with 22 home runs and had an 862 OPS. So that's more Alex Bregman numbers. Definitely helped out down the stretch. And this is the guy that has some playoff experience as well. Obviously, the Houston Astros being in multiple ALCSs for a long time in a row. This season being the first one. I think it was in, 5 years? This was the streak they had going. And obviously, it was broken this season. Again, there's the cheating allegations. Not the allegations, it happened. Alex Bregman right in the middle of that. George Springer was another piece right in the middle of that. So when we look at cheating for the Toronto Blue Jays, obviously it's not something that's Ross Atkins is scared of. If you're going to sign a George Springer type contract and you have that Alex Bregman type contract as well, he's right in the middle of it as well. I think that's in the past. I'm not really taking too much away from that. The Toronto Blue Jays just aren't going to cheat. Maybe they should cheat from what we've seen. They could definitely be a use for that in Toronto Blue Jays baseball. But with Bregman, yeah, he's a great defender. He's been an above league average hitter his entire career. I don't necessarily expect that to desist in the next couple of seasons. The only thing with the Bregman thing is if he's going to come to the Toronto Blue Jays, and we always say, how attractive is this Toronto Blue Jays landing spot? When you have a team like the Houston Astros, when you have multiple other teams that are in on this guy, the New York Yankees obviously being there as well. The Mets, another team that's just in on literally every single player. The Seattle Mariners is a spot that actually would make a lot of sense for me if they do land there. Seattle Mariners, one of the best pitching staffs in baseball last season. Their offense just absolutely stunk out loud. Very tough baseball team to watch. So that's another team that's interested. And then AJ Hinch being the manager of the Detroit Tigers, obviously going back to those cheating scandals back in 2017. Maybe there's a reunion there. So there's going to be a lot of teams in the market for Alex Bregman. The Toronto Blue Jays are probably going to have to overpay for him, I would assume, to get this guy to land here. And it's not going to be something that is – he's not going to get signed in the first 2 weeks. He's going to field his offers. He's going to kind of play it a little bit up, see what he can get from the market. And then maybe at the end when the Toronto Blue Jays – maybe some other teams sign guys like Juan Soto, the Santander, things like that, and Bregman kind of slips through the cracks. That would be a scenario where I see the Toronto Blue Jays signing this guy.
Yeah, and I've talked about this, maybe not on the podcast specifically, but to people when I'm having conversations around the Toronto Blue Jays, is I could see them sort of, what I think needs to happen for this team to get some big signings is to lock down somebody early. That is where my head is at with this Toronto Blue Jays team. I think they have to get somebody early to make this more attractive. If other players see that some players are wanting to sign with Toronto, then maybe that makes it more compelling. And we'll get into what makes this market compelling and what, is driving people to come here, because that is going to be a big question, is how much will last season affect this team in this offseason? It's a big question. I think Alex Bregman, at the end of the day, Carter, I think you're right. It might be one of those that slipped through the crack with the amount of big free agents there are. Alex Bregman might be one of those guys that, just signs out of the blue when you don't hear anything about it because he's fielded his offers and maybe he took a little bit to make his decision. Where I think Santander, Juan Soto, those guys, you'll know every detail about everything going on within their contract and who they're going with. It's going to be a little bit different for guys like Alex Bregman. And I mean, we can go on and on about the list. We don't want to spoil anything for upcoming episodes either, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I could see the Alex Bregman really waiting quite a while, and we don't hear anything for it. And I'm on the bandwagon with the Toronto Blue Jays of sign somebody early, and I'm really hoping we get that because I think that'll get the fans back into it a little bit. If it is one of these bigger name guys that have some fan draw, and I think that's what this club obviously is looking for. We have another sort of quote to hit on here in the next few episodes that'll really, I think, put that into the minds of Toronto Blue Jays fans. So heads up for that Thursday or Friday. We're going to get to that too, because there are some big things at play here for the Toronto Blue Jays, Carter.
Oh, and there has to be for a team just going over. Let's go over the team offensive stats again. Throughout the first half of the season, this team was significantly worse than the back half of the season. And that's when you got some prospects in, some guys that actually haven't even really played MLB baseball. So not the greatest look for your team. In runs, they were 22nd in the league, hits 16th, so about league average 19th. OBP, they were pretty good at getting walks. Again, 13th. It's not jumping off the page necessarily. It's a little bit above league average. Slugging 20th. Obviously, the teams did not hit many home runs. And going into the home runs, 26th in the league. So Alex Bregman is going to be a guy that is going to help that with that home run total. Over the last 3 seasons, he averages about 22 to 24 home runs. So we look at the Toronto Blue Jays, look at these home run numbers. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the only one above 20 home runs. So this is another guy that would help immensely. And as we've talked about before on this podcast, corner outfield position, second base, third base position. You do have some options in the infield, so I think the outfield would probably be the first one that they would go to. So you can play Ernie Clement there. If you're really high on Will Wagner, you can play him there. Orelvis Martinez, maybe you move him to third base. I don't necessarily see that as much. If anything, you probably move him to second. But there are some options. So if you don't get Alex Bregman, it's not the end of the world. But I mean, this is definitely going to be a guy that would help your team. And just kind of going into the defense as well. Very good range, 91st in percentile in range. Did have 10 errors this season, but I mean, Matt Chapman had also a million errors this season, and he's a very good defender, as we all know, obviously, as Toronto Blue Jays fans. A 972 fielding percentage and 6 outs above average. Again, like I said before, nominated for a Gold Glove. There's got to be some validity to that as well. So it depends kind of what Ross Atkins wants to do. If you have Alex Bregman at third base, obviously he is your everyday third baseman. You don't necessarily have that platoon. And the way it's looking right now for that second base position, that would be the position that is more so going to be platoon. And you're okay with one spot in the infield, in my opinion, that you can rotate some guys, play some matchups. But if you have to do that at third base and second base, I don't think you're setting yourself up for as much success in 2025.
Yeah, and you know what? We have lots more to talk about on Alex Bregman. We'll come back right after the break. More information. How does it fit? How does he fit within this Toronto Blue Jays system? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Catch you on the other side. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. I'm telling you guys, FanDuel's the only place I'm placing my NFL bets. They have the best parlays. They have the best system for, you're in a game stuff. I like to watch the trends, see what's happening during games, and that's when I like to place my bets. Personally, you guys should be able to take advantage of that as well. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, Carter, we touched on Alex Bregman a little bit, but, a lot to go into with this guy. I mean, he is an exceptional baseball player. And what I would think is a really good fit for this team. Yes, we've talked about the outfield position with a few guys. We've talked about second base and where to play him. But you're right. He just fits in perfectly. As much as I love Ernie Clement, as I said in the first segment here, as much as I love Ernie, I think there's better uses of his talents than to take up another platoon spot on this team. You said it perfectly correct, Carter. This team can't afford to have 2 platoon spots. I don't know another team in the MLB that is a good team that has 2 to 3 platoon spots throughout their entire lineup. That just can't be a thing. You need your everyday players. You need superstars. And I keep coming back to this. It doesn't matter where your superstars play. As long as they actually get at-bats, that is the biggest thing. Your superstars, as much as we love defense and we talk about Daulton Varsho and how good he is defensively, that doesn't win you baseball games. Your hitting is going to win you baseball games. So you need those guys who can come up and put up, a 260, 275 average, getting 20 home runs, putting up the numbers, driving in runs, getting the RBIs. You need those guys so badly. Alex Bregman, Anthony Santander, Juan Soto, those guys all move the needle. The question is, how much do they move that needle, Carter? How much does a guy like Alex Bregman really move the needle for this team?
And it's got to be a lot, obviously, right? Like this is a huge power bat that not even a power bat, just an all around hitter, and that's more of the Ross Atkins feel that he wanted. He again, not saying power is a low hanging fruit. Again, there's if you view that in a certain perspective, you can kind of see what he's talking about. But overall, when you didn't hit any home runs in 2024, that's not exactly what the fan base wants to hear. But with Alex Bregman, he's a guy that hits doubles. He's a guy that has a very good OPS. He's a guy that can drive the ball out of the ballpark. He's a guy that has a lot of playoff experience. Hoping, I guess you could say, the Toronto Blue Jays get there. But with Alex Bregman, one guy I like to compare him to, and I'm going to kind of use this for this episode, is Matt Chapman. I'm going to flat out say it. I think Bregman is better than Matt Chapman. I think Matt Chapman's probably slightly better defensively, but Alex Bregman's going to give you better at-bats. He's not going to strike out as much as Matt Chapman. But I like to use this for the contract that was just paid out for Matt Chapman. So Matt Chapman just signed a 6-year, $151 million deal. I think Bregman's going to get more than that. Jim Bowden predicts a 7-year, $185.5 million deal. So Chapman's just over $25 million a year. They have Alex Bregman at $26.5. I think it might even go higher than that. But again, just basing it off of Matt Chapman, these two over the last 3 seasons on average. Alex Bregman on average plays 154 games, has 152 hits, 32 doubles, 25 home runs, 89 RBIs, 83 Ks, and a 797 OPS. When we look at Matt Chapman, he plays 150 games on average, 129 hits. That is 23 less than Bregman. 35 doubles, 3 more than Bregman. 22 home runs, 3 less than Bregman. The RBIs here, 20 less on average for Chapman at 69 compared to 89. Strikes out more than double than Bregman, with Bregman at 83, Chapman at 164. That's why we didn't like Matt Chapman, because he was it seemed like in every big moment he was striking out. And then a 767 OPS. So obviously Matt Chapman is a good baseball player. He's an above average baseball player. I would say he's above average hitter with the power that he offers. And obviously that defense. But I talked with defense. I said Matt Chapman makes a million errors. Realistically, it was actually 15, but that is more than Alex Bregman right there. So looking at Bregman, they're going to have to pay him more than that $150 million. He's probably going to want, I think, a 7-year deal. I think Jim Bowden is correct with that. And the only issue I have with that is this kind of reminds me of a George Springer type contract. Again, there has been slight regression from his MVP caliber seasons in 2018, 2019. That's expected. He's getting a little bit older, the 30-year-old. But if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, the way that this team is trending, the way that Ross Atkins has this team's direction going is that they want to compete next year. They want to play competitive baseball. And they're not necessarily as worried as building for the future. They want to win now. And Alex Bregman would fit that scope in winning now, because he's still playing some of the best baseball of his career.
Yeah, dude, the biggest conversation around all of these free agents and what we're expecting is going to happen, it all comes back to the contract. You have to find out what is feasible for this baseball team, not just to be good now, but you said talking about the future as well. And I don't know if a 7-year Alex Bregman deal is the best thing for this team. I think you're going to have to pay him more if you want him for less. That's the issue. So are you willing to sacrifice a few years in the future and potentially have us in 6-7 years talking about him like we talk about George Springer? That is a big question for me. And I don't necessarily know where I stand. And I talk about a lot of these guys of at what point do we not care and we want to win now so badly that we're willing to sacrifice years down the line? And 100%, if I felt that this team could 100% be a World Series contender next season, I would say give them the money, pay them whatever you got to pay them for as long term as you need them, because we want a World Series. But right now, we're not seeing that World Series aspiration. So in my head, are we going to sacrifice the next 7 years of Toronto Blue Jays baseball to try to win now when maybe that's not going to happen and maybe this team isn't built for it? Do I think that this Alex Bregman would be a great signing? 100%. I think that he would help this team now. But looking at it as sort of in its entirety, I don't know. And I think that comes down to what Ross Atkins wants to do. And I know he's fighting for his job right now. He has to be. If there's no fear of God in him right now about this, about his time with the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm concerned for the entire organization, because it's put up or shut up time here for Ross Atkins. So this better be a free agency that he makes something happen. But Carter, at the end of the day, it's all wait and see. It's all what moves are made, what contracts are offered from other teams. I mean, the Blue Jays can go and do and say and give whatever they want to give. At the end of the day, the player still has to accept and sign that contract.
Well, and you brought up a point where they could sign him for like a 4 or 5 year deal. I think if he wanted to do that, he would just go back to the Houston Astros. Because you talk about attractive landing spots, the Houston Astros are a way more attractive landing spot than the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, a bunch of players there. But the reason why I don't think he will sign for the Astros if he's looking for a longer contract is you just look at the team history. You look at the George Springers. They let George Springer go because he wanted a longer contract. Carlos Guerrero was another one. Garrett Cole's another one. Even the ones they've signed, they're superstars. Jordan's on a 5 year. Jose Altuve's on a 5 year. The Astros just don't like giving these extended contracts. And it's because they're avoiding the inevitable. When these guys regress, when they have at the back end of these contracts, they're not necessarily playing that good of baseball. They don't want to commit themselves to $20+ million for a guy that might not even be a league average hitter, as we might see with George Springer, unfortunately, in this next season. So with Bregman, again, obviously a guy that would help your team so much right now. And if you want to compete for this year, you're going to have to make some moves. You're probably going to have to, like I said, pay for Alex Bregman. And it's going to be interesting to see if he kind of bases his market off of some of these other free agents that go, maybe a Willie Adames, maybe, again, Anthony Santander, a little bit of a tougher comparison there with an outfield position. But I don't think Alex Bregman is going to be the first one to go. You said the Toronto Blue Jays should sign somebody early. I completely agree. I think if you sign a big name like Alex Bregman, they're going to be more inclined to sign some other big names, some other good players that are going to want to come to the Toronto Blue Jays. But if you're Alex Bregman, I think you got to test your market. I think at this point of your career, you want to get that bag, and it's definitely a fair thing to say. I can't take anything away from Alex Bregman for that. But if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, you're really going to have to fight to get this guy on your team.
100%. 100%. This free agency is going to be a battle. There's a lot of teams that want to sign these great free agents. This is one of the best free agent classes I've seen in a long time, Carter. And it opens up a lot of opportunities, but it also means people are willing to overpay on a lot of these guys. So, again, the Blue Jays are going to have to decide where they stand, what's too much, what's feasible. So, again, we're going to keep talking about this throughout the next long while. We have a lot of free agents to get to. We want to see who would be a good fit for this team. So we're going to be breaking that all down in the next coming weeks and have all your news covered right here on Locked On Blue Jays as well. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. There was a quote that came out from Ben Nicholson-Smith. We'll get into it. If you follow us on Instagram, you've seen it. We're going to discuss it here today. I'll put it up on the screen for all of you can see it, and I'll read it out for those of you listening as well. We'll be right back after this short break. Carter, this episode is brought to you by Hims. We've talked about Hims before. Many of you probably have heard this ad. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have time to go to the doctor's office and get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their genetics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need to feel uncomfortable for those uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and the medical provider will determine the right treatment options if prescribed. Your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personal ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. The product mentions are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for the safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescription requires an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plans.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Arena Club. For the most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka, an Ellie De La Cruz card, a Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com. Now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was a hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. I pulled a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. rookie card. I'm going to have to show that on this podcast at some point. Unbelievable pull for me as a Toronto Blue Jays fan. The luck was on my side, and Arena Club made that possible. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform that you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card by purchasing and going to arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb. code Locked On MLB for 10% off your first purchase.
So, Carter, we talked about this Blue Jays quote that we've been talking about for the past little while, and some of you may have seen it on our Instagram. I've mentioned it, and I'm going to post it on the screen here for some of the of those watching on YouTube. You can read it, but I will also say it out loud so those people listening can understand what the quote is as well. So I'll throw it up here. So it says, offensively, Blue Jays will stay flexible, but people here at GM meetings see the most likely spots for an upgrade as corner, outfield, second base, and third base in that order. And that comes directly from Ben Nicholson-Smith of Sportsnet. And I don't know, Carter. This is exactly what we've said pretty much all offseason. These are the positions that I think anybody with eyes can see that the Blue Jays can upgrade at. And I don't know. This doesn't come as a big shock, but I think it at least puts into perspective of what they're going for. They understand what they need to do. And I think that's a big thing because not always do these GMs see the same thing as the fans do. And the fans don't see the same things as the GM does. But at the end of the day, it seems like everybody's sort of on the same page here.
Well, and the first one, obviously, in the corner outfielder, which had Toronto Blue Jays media going absolutely wild because who's the biggest fish on the market? That is Juan Soto. That would be a huge fit, obviously, for this team. We've already went on about Juan Soto, how realistic that is. So I think we've kind of talked him to death. So I'm going to move on from that. The thing for me from this is that is interesting is that they have second base as a priority rather than third base. So that means, for me at least, they don't trust Spencer Horwitz playing defensively at second base. I think that going into next year, he must be rotating with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the first base and DH role. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. I would be much more comfortable with Spencer Horwitz playing second base, the easier defensive position to play, and then go out and get a third baseman. Doesn't necessarily have to be Alex Bregman, but maybe they don't like the third base market as much as they like the second base market. Maybe they feel like they have some internal pieces that can play third base rather than second base. So it's going to be interesting to kind of break this down. And again, you kind of said it. You're not Albert Einstein calling this out. It's glaringly obvious what the holes were on this Toronto Blue Jays team. It's the bullpen. It's one corner outfield position. It's the second base. It's the third base position. David Schneider, again, played good defensive outfield, made the average plays. But again, is this a guy that you want to be relying on through the stretch? Second base, again, do you want to platoon that? Do you want to platoon third base as well? So they're going to have to make some moves. And it's nice that they did say that there is 3 positions of need. Are they going to address all 3 of these positions? We're going to have to see. We're going to have to see how the cards fall. And it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of weigh some of these prospects with the small sample sizes they gave us last season.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. And I think that's another key piece for this team is noticing which guys you want in this lineup. And you can see a growth for this season. And who won't be a strong piece, who still needs time to develop. That's huge. And where can this offseason supplement the pieces already here? And we've talked about this again and again, and we will continue to talk about this because it is one of those pieces that, you hope that the Blue Jays know and understand the situation they're in because we all see it as fans, as casuals, as, podcasters like us. We all see the problem areas. It's what is going to be done to supplement this. And at the end of the day, Carter, I guess this is my final thought is I'm happy to see that they understand the problem. Do I necessarily believe that they're going to fix it correctly? I'm a little bit up in the air. I want to have faith in Ross. I really do. I just hope that with how good this free agent market is, that he's able to really get some good additions.
Well, and we talk about the free agent market and we talk about all the positions of need. And we say relatively, again, it can be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Around $50 million will be spent on free agency this offseason. If you need a second baseman, you need a third baseman, you need a corner outfield, you need $1 million bullpen arms. Is that feasible from free agency? So for me, my final thoughts on this is all but pointing to a trade for the Toronto Blue Jays. You have all these prospects. You have a ton of infield depth. You don't really have any outfield depth. So what I can see is if they don't go get the big fish, they don't get a guy like Juan Soto, they don't necessarily address the corner outfield position. I think the best case scenario is you go and you do make a trade at that corner outfield position. I think there's a lot more third baseman, second baseman that you can kind of rotate in. Again, if you have to platoon second base, I don't mind that. So I think a trade is going to be in the cards for the Toronto Blue Jays. And if you're going to pull the trigger on a trade, like you kind of said about these free agent signings, I'd rather see this sooner than later because then you can build the rest of your roster with free agency. You don't want to let all these free agents and these options be signed as we get through free agency and then kind of be left with the scraps at the end.
Totally, dude. We're going to have so much more coverage on free agency coming in, the next foreseeable future that until something big happens, right? So again, we're going to continue to cover this. Check out the Instagram, check out our Twitter, keep locked into our
Discord, X,
Discord,
Instagram, TikTok.
anything.
We're
Sorry,
posting.
TikTok. Thank you. I'm blanking. Jesus. Anyway, we really hope you guys keep sticking around with us. We've seen a lot of you guys starting to subscribe. So if you haven't, make sure you do that. And as always, we appreciate you guys making us your first listen. For your second listen, you can check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan as well. He runs a really good show over there. So if you want to go pop by there after you watch us, make sure you can, check him out. Thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.